Biscuits, it's Cupcake Kami-sama back here and welcome to another video. This time I'm joining the Lolita Fashion YouTubers group on Facebook for another collaboration. This one was started by Clover Jean, so thank you so much for doing it, for organising it and for extending the invitation to all of us. The collaboration this time is meant to get to know us a little bit better, us as people, us as J-fashionistas, as people wearing alternative fashions, all things like this. There's a list of questions. At the time of recording, the list numbers 28 questions, but there may be more if people join in later and add things. And we're just asked to answer however many of you we feel like. I will link the collaboration playlist in the cards up there, so make sure to check that out, because some of the people joining might answer all the questions, some might only do a few, like I'm about to do right now. And before we get stuck with the question, make sure to subscribe to my channel. My aim is to make at least one Lolita fashion related video a month, and every time I manage to make an extra one, I'm never entirely sure when that will be, so you'll want to also click the bell button next to it so that you're notified when that happens. And if you want to catch those videos 1 week before everyone else does, then you can join my Patreon. A link to that is in the description box below. Because I know myself, and I know that I have a tendency to go off on a tangent and not get to the point, I thought that doing all 28 questions would be too much. Too much for you to watch, too much for me to edit. At the same time, I couldn't really decide on which questions I wanted to answer, so I thought, let someone else decide, and that someone else will be the random number generator on my tablet. I have decided to answer 5 randomly selected questions. Having said this, there is one question in that list that I have submitted, and since it would be unfair if I sent a question and never answered it myself, if the random number generator doesn't land on that, then I'll add it as a 6th one as a bonus. Okay, I am all set. Random number generator, minimum number 1, maximum number 28. Let's see what questions we get, eh? I've also completely forgotten what the questions are and not even looked at them, so no answers are prepared. Number 5. If you could get paid to do anything, what would it be? It's not as if I've not thought about that in my life recently. The absolute ideal scenario is that I just get paid to exist. I don't want to have to do anything other than meet my basic necessities in order to survive. That's a have to that I can't ignore. But I don't want to be forced to do anything. Being paid just to exist, having the sustenance to have a life that I have now, and recognize that as a human being I have a right to be alive and to enjoy my life. That is the ideal scenario. Call me a commie, I don't care. Especially since in that kind of utopia, I could then pursue anything that I would like to. So I'm not limited to saying, I want to do this as a career, or I want to engage myself in that activity. I can pick and choose, do one thing one day and something completely unrelated another. As a more realistic answer, I'd love to be paid for my writing. Whether that's blogging, which is the most writing I do these days, whether that's for the fiction that I write and don't have the guts to send to anyone. That would probably be the ideal scenario. That would be quite a dream come true, and it would also give me the validation that I'm not just writing because I enjoy it. I'm writing and there are people out there who enjoy reading what I write. Is this the right opportunity to do a shameless plug for my blog? But you know the drill. Cupcakes and unicorns. Let's move on to another question. Give me another number. 23. 23 is, what subject did you enjoy most in school? And what did you study in college if you went? I'll start with the second part, the what did I do at university? Because that's easy, that's straightforward. I studied Japanese studies, nice and broad, which basically meant that I had to study both the language and the culture of Japan. It essentially means that I am academically recognized as a weeb, if in case it wasn't clear enough, but I have a paper to prove that I'm a weeb. What did I enjoy most in school? The thing with school is you have to be there. It's compulsory. And because of this, there are subjects that you enjoy because of the subjects. And there are subjects that you enjoy because the teacher is amazing and they're making you appreciate the subject that you learn. Also, at different stages of your life, you tend to like different things. I know I'm overthinking this question massively. You are all hoping for something simple, but that ain't me. I mean, I might be simple, but my answer's no, I can't commit. Sorry. But it boils down to, in different schools and at different times in my life, I enjoyed different subjects. In a grand scheme of things, I've always been into humanities. So history, literature, languages, that sort of stuff were always a favourite. Anything that allowed me to explore that, I made the extra effort to do it. Because in some schools, my teachers for those subjects weren't necessarily the best, it affected how much I enjoyed them at that time. So for example, in primary school, I loved history, but my history teacher, bless her, she was a lovely person, but she couldn't teach us history. But that changed by the time I moved to the UK and then did history here at the age of 14, 15, and then in further education at A-level, where my teachers were incredible and they made me love the subject even more. The flip side of that answer, I'm not necessarily keen on the subject, but the teacher made me appreciate it, was RE, religious studies. And this is also a combination of having a fantastic teacher, but also the subject being taught differently in the UK than it is in Poland. In Poland, I was exempt from RE because RE is basically Bible study. Everyone is presumed to be Catholic. Most people will be essentially forced to be Catholic through cultural significance being placed on christenings and whatnot. So by default, most people in Poland are Catholic. I managed to avoid that. Long story, not for this video. And as such, I was exempt from RE lessons. But yeah, it was basically Bible study and preparing you for all the other stuff that's happening in your life as a Catholic, first Holy Communion and confirmation and all that. In the UK, RE is actually teaching you about religions. When I did it, so when compulsory education stopped at 16, the rules were that you studied Christianity plus one other religion that your school got to choose. So in my case, I studied Christianity and Islam. Our school had a big Muslim population at the time. And even though that's what we had to focus on, we still got glimpses of other religions. Judaism, Hinduism, I think it mostly stopped at that. It stopped at the major ones. And so it was more akin to ethics in a sense, because you were taking topics, broad topics from life, like crime, family, health, what else did we do? Conflict, big overarching themes, and learning how each religion approached those, which to someone brought up where Catholicism was the only religion around was fascinating. And to be able to see pretty much black on white how similar so many religions are. Having my eyes open to how on a theological level the major religions across the world don't differ so much from each other was mind-blowing to teenage me. And then I had the privilege of having an absolutely fantastic teacher for that subject, so I ended up really enjoying that. And this is why I've only picked 5 questions. Lord knows how long I've spent talking about something that should have been simple. So moving on. Stop waffling on, Paulina. The third question that I'm answering is number 4 on the list. What is your least favorite brand for Lolita / old fashion and why? Brackets, spill some tea. As much as I'd love to spill some tea, I can't. Not to say that, if we did a scale of all the brands and ranked them, some of them I would prefer less than others. But generally speaking, once it gets to the point in that ranking where things stop being clear favorites or preferences, I stop caring. So, no doubts, there are brands out there that are not my cup of tea, that don't fit my taste, but I don't see the point in expending my energy to do anything about that. I don't know, it might just be me interpreting it that way, but the way this question is phrased implies something active, that there is a brand that I actively dislike. And to me, that means, for example, that if one of my friends said, "Ooh, I want to buy this," I'd tell them, "No, don't," or "I don't think you should." And there isn't one like that I can think of. There isn't a brand that I could pinpoint to say, this is my least favorite and here is a list why, because they've slighted my mother and kicked my cat. Exaggerating, obviously, but sorry to disappoint. No tea to spill. Brands that I used to be not keen on in the past, with time proved to be firm favorites. There are brands that I genuinely wouldn't buy right now for a whole host of reasons, from practical to ideological. That doesn't mean that I would tell others you shouldn't be buying that or question why they would. And that's specifically for Lolita. I can't really extend that to other old fashions really, because I don't tend to follow them. I guess this will be a cop-out answer, but any brand that does replicas, if your whole idea of making profit is to rip off someone else's work, no. So cop-out answer, but as I said, I don't have any tea to spill. I don't have grudges against any particular brands. There isn't one whose look I would detest so much that it would stick out in my head as, I really don't like that. You do you. Doesn't have to be for me. What was that? That was question 3. Yes. So the 4th one for me to answer is number 24. Ooh. Prepare for another tangent. Question 24 is, who is your best friend, online and or in person? And do you have a Lolita best friend? Right, let me sit more comfortably. This is another question of 2 halves. On the one, I love all my friends, whether they be Lolita or not, equally, and I could give you a whole massive list of people. I'm not really going to, because I don't know if they'd want to be mentioned. Some of them don't enjoy being brought out publicly. Some of them don't even know I do these videos, but still they might want to protect their privacy. And at this point in my life, which is the second half of my answer, I've outgrown the concept of best friend as we tend to understand it when we're children or teenagers. And I have had that when I was much younger. She still is, my best friend from childhood. She's known me practically since she was born, because she's a little bit younger than me. So we've known each other all our lives. And for the longest time, I could hand on heart say that she is my best friend in the entire world, with that implied exclusivity. But here's the thing. when you place that sort of exclusivity and superlative onto one person, that's quite a lot of pressure. Not necessarily on them, they might not realize, or they might be fine with that, but on yourself, because you start thinking that this person is your be-all and end-all of friendship relationships, and if they find a new friend, then you might feel like they're pushing you away, or if they can't do something with you right now, if they're unavailable for whatever reason, you might feel lost in a sense of, well, who do I turn to now? This isn't to criticize or question anyone who does have a relationship with their friend where it is all that superlative, this is my singular best friend. If you have that, that's amazing. Cherish that relationship. What I'm saying is, personally, placing that onus on a singular person is a lot. And for me, it was better to realize that all the friends that I have, I cherish and love and respect equally, that my relationship with them doesn't devalue relationships I have with other people, and same goes for them. Their relationship with me doesn't devalue the friendships they have with others. At the same time, because I have had that experience of, this is my best friend, we do everything together, we share everything with each other, we can tell each other anything. Not having it in my life in that way now, especially where pretty much every piece of media glorifies the concept of a singular best friend or a tiny close-knit group of friends. So yeah, of course, that sometimes I sit there and wish that I could have that picture perfect experience with someone like this, and especially with Lolita, where so much of it, so much about the fashion is linking to the idealized femininity, of which girly sleepovers and makeovers and talking about frilly stuff over cups of tea, that sort of stuff feels like a really big part of Lolita, or something that fits into this subculture really neatly. So yeah, of course, I'd love to have a Lolita best friend that even if my local community is not able to meet up, I can still deck into full frills, meet someone else also decked out in full frills, and we can just hang out together like this, whether it's drinking tea, going off somewhere, or staying in. Of course, I'd love that, and which answers the question of, I don't think that I do have a Lolita best friend, but I don't feel any poorer for it. Every person in my life whom I've grown close enough to call them my friends and to open myself up to them and show them my vulnerable side, I cherish. I don't rank them in terms of, this one I like more than that one. That's a bit playground. And it's more so that I reach out to them with slightly different things sometimes, and more so in that positive sense. So there will be one person that I'll spam with a particular types of memes, and another one whom I'll be dropping links to Frill and Mercari and saying, look at this is ridiculous, how are they selling it for that much? And then another person to whom I'll just drop a line saying, I wish we could hang out, I miss our lunch breaks together, whatever that might be. All of these relationships are different, but all of them are equally important to me. Question 5. Let's select that. Number 8. Describe your ideal JSK or OP. Brackets, cut, color, print, etc. At this point, everything that in my limited designing capacity imagination was in my head has already been brought to reality. So to me, this is more akin to, what is your dream dress kind of question. The closest to what the question is asking about is Baby the Stars Shine Bright Polonaise Brillante. over here, because before that was released, I was actually thinking that one day I'll save up and I'll ask someone for a commission to have a custom-made Lolita dress that looks like Polish national costume. And then Baby said, now we got you. And they delivered this beauty, so now I don't have to. And it is perfect in every capacity. And actually I'm just going to leave it at this, because otherwise we'll start listing all the dresses, all the dream dresses that I by now own, and we're probably already way too long into the video. So that was question 5, and as promised, because the random number generator hasn't landed on the one that I've submitted, we're doing a bonus, probably another ranty answer, so bear with, because the question is, if you never discovered Lolita / old fashion, what do you think you would be wearing? And what hobby / hobbies would occupy its place instead? And I've submitted that question because that's something that I think about every now and then, something that my mind wanders to. And the short of it is, I kind of don't have a clue, which is why I think about that so often. Lolita has become such a massive part of my life and my identity that to imagine what my life would have been like without it is just because from this universe in the multiverse theory where I have discovered Lolita, the only thing I can imagine my life being without it is poorer. Having said this, and going back to when I started Lolita and what sort of things I remember being into at that time, I do think that I would have simply gotten more into vintage and rockabilly clothing. I most likely would have stayed with 50s as my decade of choice, but considering how even recently I've been dabbling in and out of some other ones, I might have extended it to there. And I think in essence that probably would have become my Lolita. You know, the alternate universe Paulina might be sat talking to her phone about 50s fashion and vintage fashion and historical fashion more broadly. So I imagine that would have become my style, as well as my major replacement hobby. That sounds horrible. But yeah, I think I would have gone down that route, because it's a road I've already been going down as I was discovering Lolita. Lolita sidetracked me for a little bit, and I'm finding myself here now returning to that and doing more of that stuff. So I imagine as an extension of this, there would have been more burlesque, because that's the route that I've gone into vintage and rockabilly fashion through. There might have been more active following of vintage fairs, stuff like this. Maybe eventually it would lead to sewing, but again, that's me guessing based on what I know I'm thinking about now. So maybe, maybe not. So yeah, I think if I hadn't discovered Lolita fashion, even though by the time I discovered properly burlesque, rockabilly, vintage, that side of life, I was already at university doing my weeb degree, I think I still would have ended up pursuing vintage fashion more, and that would have been my primary style and primary hobby. And on that note, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. As mentioned before, this is part of a collaboration with the Lolita Fashion YouTubers group on Facebook, and this particular collaboration is organized by Clover Jean. There will be other people taking part, so make sure to check out the playlist, which I've linked in the cards previously, and I'll leave a link to it in the description box below, as well as links to the channels of every single participant in this collaboration so that you can check them out too. If you've liked this video and enjoyed finding out some really random bits, we've gone truly everywhere, both Lolita and not Lolita, then give this video a thumbs up, comment on it, subscribe to my channel. As mentioned before, my aim is to make at least one Lolita fashion related video a month, and anything that comes on top of that is quite randomized, so you'll also want to click the bell button next to it so that you're notified when I upload a new video. If you want to encourage me in creating more video content, then you can do so either by Patreon or by dropping a one-off tip using Ko-fi. Both links are also in the description box below. And as always, I encourage all of you to check out my blog, which is Cupcakes and Unicorns, where you'll find more Lolita content. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye!